kind of, I think for everyone has at different points that kind of like, oh moment where they realize sort of this thing that they've been looking at a picture of and then seeing it in 3 dimensions.
This object belongs to another place, another time. It's a teleportation device into the past.
Learning to look closely is different from seeing something quickly. I constantly try to find different ways that I can connect what I'm doing in the classroom with an object in our collection. My name is Laura Tillery. I am assistant professor in art history. There are 10,000 objects in the collection, so it is an iterative process, as I like to say.
It's always astonishing to me, just the range and the breadth of the material that we hold. I am Liz Shannon. I am the collections curator at the Wellin Museum of Art. We tend to be looking for artworks that can be taught with by faculty, that students will be able to connect with, will be able to learn from.
As an archaeologist, right, we want to go from the thing. I'm Hannah Lau, I'm an assistant professor in anthropology here, and I'm an archaeologist. It creates a lot of opportunities for experience versus like a more theoretical engagement with material.
Having that conversation, looking at the object in person, is radically transformative to students, rather than just being in a lecture hall looking at a projector screen.
Or we may be looking at them on our phones, so it sort of like impresses what that viewing experience is like. I'm Usman Hamid. I'm an assistant professor in Asian studies. But to actually look at these things up close, I think nothing sort of beats that.
You can talk about things, but it might be hard to picture, you know. If I say like, all right, picture a lamp, it's about the size of your palm, it's made of terracotta, it's kind of roundish, there's still a lot of space for what that could look like. But when we say, okay, let's go look at these ones that we have in the Wellin. Generally speaking, we come and visit the Wellin, and it's like as a class. So the amazing staff here will take material and put them in usually one of the seminar rooms for us to look at and guide our students through looking at them.
When we bring out different objects for classes, different faculty, different visitors, it does feel like, you know, some of the objects just kind of spark alive again.
I see the sense of curiosity in the students that you don't see otherwise. There's something about sort of being so close to touching something that it really is coming from a place that otherwise they're only mediating through reading texts.
One of the great strengths about kind of a one-on-one student-object experience is that often students can come to a lot of different understandings about, you know, various topics on their own, which I think often is more memorable. It's a deeper kind of knowledge, and it builds confidence too.
Students can have challenging conversations because it's grounded in something concrete. It can be a way for students to navigate really difficult things that students are also dealing with, that we're trying to help students understand the through lines between, oh, maybe the medieval world's not that different from who we are today.
One of the things I love to do is kind of go and just pull things out of storage, look through the painting racks and see what we have. And we just kept making these amazing discoveries of different objects from, you know, across cultures, different time periods, and discovering they had animals included on them, and people love animals.
Like, there are these Roman lamps that are in the collection. They're cool, they're, you know, they're small, they're like, you know, something that would sort of fit in your hand, and they all have a spout, and they would have probably been filled with like olive oil and a wick around the shoulder, so like around what we think the sides are. You see a fish and a bird that looks like a swan kind of bird, and a rabbit and what looks like maybe a deer. these are just everyday objects made to look pretty. Thinking about like, why do you choose the mug that you like the looks of versus a plain mug? They function the same way, but there's something pleasing about that. People in the past are like us, they like aesthetically pleasing things as well.
This was always one of my favorite objects from graduate school because, I mean, who doesn't like to see a interesting representation of a rhinoceros printed in the year 1515. So this is about an animal who traveled from what is modern-day India to modern-day Portugal and then was going to go to Italy as a gift to the Pope. But then somehow in the Mediterranean, the ship sank. But the rhinoceros has a really big afterlife, because a textual description of what a rhinoceros looked like was sent to Albrecht Dürer. And he made a drawing of it first. And then from the drawing, he made a woodcut. Our object was likely printed, I think it was 1605, by a Dutch publisher who basically got a hold of the block that Albrecht Dürer originally used to print his 1515 rhinoceros. And it's one of my favorite objects in the collection.
One of the things I really like about the piece, which is a 17th century piece, is that it also depicts like pleasure, right? So it's this man, he is sitting on top of a rock, smoking tobacco in a water pipe. But I also love the fact that this painting has like a little like cat peeking out of this person's pocket, right? And so there's also this really cute, a really sort of touching moment of sort of human-animal friendship. In fact, actually, we have a lot of illustrations of animals, particularly cats, within the early modern period, which makes me think perhaps people were obsessed about cats as much as they are today. Yeah, maybe we're not as different as 300 years ago, to be honest. Cute cats have always been in vogue.
I think students are also aware about why objects were created. When you get this idea that they were meant to be looked at, they were meant to be experienced fully.
Yeah, someone made this, someone touched it, someone lit it. I think it's very cool.
So then to actually hold these objects and think about sort of what it means to create these objects and sustain these objects.
As great as we can try to simulate that experience in the classroom, looking closely at objects is transformative for students.
Mesoamerican objects, ancient objects that are thousands of years old, you can just have this incredibly intimate experience directly with an object that is much older than you are. It's so special, it's so unusual, really.
By getting close, you have proximity to the object and you can just see more, talk about more, and it's just a better experience.